Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? I hope you're all doing excellent. Now, before we get started on today's video about wiring up the Haltech, I wanted to talk about one thing that we left kind of unanswered in a previous video, and that is the state of our fuel tank. If you remember, we did a fuel system video, and the tank and the fuel sender unit that we pulled out was pretty grody, and obviously some of you have commented and saying that that's not the way it should be, and you're right, and I wanted to show you that we are cleaning the tank. So right here we have a big, almost empty jug of purple power, which we've been soaking in there overnight. Could you be quiet, chickens? We actually soaked it for 2 nights, 2 different fresh clean batches. We're just dumping out all the residue over here underneath this fake grass. We've already got the fuel residue out of there and any remaining fuel, so it's not anything dangerous. And then now I'm going to fill it with all this vinegar and let that sit in there. What that's going to do is gently dissolve all the surface rust in between all the baffles that is difficult to reach, and then we'll rinse a few more times and then let it dry out before we put it back on. It's already looking pretty good in there. A lot of bare silver sealed metal showing up with just some light rinsing and soaking, so should be pretty good to go, and I'm happy with where we're at with that. So now I want to show you one other thing before we get to wiring. Just a little vanity shot of all the supplies we have for the oil system. We've got plenty of premix and some Idemitsu oil, plenty enough for a few oil changes, and some genuine Mazda filters. So we'll be ready to go when we break the engine in, take it for tuning, and then be ready to go after that. So excited to see this stuff arriving. Means we're getting a little bit closer day by day. Alright guys, so even though we got a nice early start today, we found a leak out by our water main for the house, so we spent the last probably 3-4 hours fixing that. But now I'm ready to dive into this wiring harness. So I have a pre-terminated harness from Haltech for an S4 13B engine. I'm going to go ahead and just start getting it laid out, and then we also have to arrange with different zip ties the routing to get it ready to be tucked away nicely. We also have to pin out a few connections from the stock connector into a Haltech friendly connector, and make sure we do that correctly. So first things first, I'm going to get this wiring loom patched through the firewall. Alright, so we got the main part of the harness passed through. Now we need to start matching up all these connections to their end location. Okay, so we got the first laydown. It's obviously quite a mess. A lot of work to do to tidy it up, but basically we used the primary part of the harness, which comes out to the injectors, as a guide, and then we've pulled everything else around. 2 problems we're running into right away are that we put our flex fuel sensor all the way over here. The flex fuel connection is right here, and that's pretty much as far as it goes, so we're going to need to extend that. Also, we relocated our battery, and the manual says connect this part of the harness directly to the battery. So we have two options. One is that we can extend it, run it back through. Two is that we can cut back into this loom and pull it out. I'm kind of interested in that because we can retape it with some Tessa tape that we did the rest of the harness in, and we should be fine as long as we don't nick anything when we cut it open. So just going to continue to lay this stuff out, and we have to pin in a few connections, so we'll show you what that looks like. We're starting to tuck away things, get a little more organized. This is for the oil metering pump, which we've deleted. By we, I mean Lucky7 deleted it for us, but either way, it's not part of the harness. So I'm just going to double it back on itself and clean it up. Excessive use of zip ties is a good idea because you can always remove them. We got a whole bag. So I don't know if we have a terminated. We got a nice terminated connector for the crank angle sensor from Haltech, so we don't have to do any pinouts on that. But we do, I think, need to do pinouts on the TPS sensor and the alternator harness. So let's try and figure that out, I suppose. Okay, so we have, unfortunately, an S4 throttle position sensor. We know that this throttle position sensor after 30% throttle reads full throttle. Not the best. They recommend an S5 or an S6 sensor, but we don't have that. So we're going to work with this for a while while we source a probably an S5 throttle body and sensor. So right now we're going to pin this out for the Haltech connection. So we have our pins here. Now we need to cut our stock harness. This is a thread ripper used for ripping threads in seamstressy. We're using it to cut back our wiring harness. Oh no, we need that. Oh, found it. So for us, we're looking to have the sensor plus 5 volts, the TPS signal, and the signal ground. So on the S4 wiring harness, green-red is the signal, orange is the 5 volts, which matches, and black and red is the ground. So we'll strip these off. Okay. Now we attach our pins. Cut. I don't want this to be on camera. I'm going to try and figure this out. Okay, so I finished crimping these wires, and I'm not going to show you the process I used because I do not have the correct tools and I don't want anybody to try what I did. In case this doesn't work out, the official recommendation is get the correct tools. Don't look at them close up. So now we're just going to slide them into the back here and get them into the correct place here. It should snap into place. That one's in, and then the last one's in. A bit. Okay. Focus in there. We got 3 pins.
Yeah, it just wants to focus. Up there it goes. Perfect. Got it.
So they're in there. Now we take that. It should hook right into here. Boom. Okay, so that's our throttle position sensor hooked up. I'm going to unhook it though, just so we can get it mounted back onto the throttle body right here. Alright, so here's our finished product. Pinned in connectors, nice tidied up harness. So let's move on to the next thing. Alright, so we just got the throttle position sensor pinned out. Right now what I'm trying to do is just start to tame this Medusa over here. We have some extra inputs that I'm just leaving off to the side, which we'll eventually use once we get this thing all tricked out. I have all these extra ones here, so I'm just trying to throw those off to the side, so we know what we don't need to kind of route, and we'll just double these back on the harness and secure those. We've hooked up the crank angle sensor. I've pulled over here the alternator control harness, but I have some questions sent out to our shop who built the engine and sent the harness, RX7, because I've read online that some people let the stock ECU control the alternator on Mazda vehicles, but we'll see what they recommend. We have our injectors hooked up. I'm starting to route those wires. Have our map sensor hooked up, just mocked up here for now. This is the TPS connection, so that'll come up from behind the upper intake manifold. We also have our intake air temperature sensor, which comes up from behind the intake manifold. I did have to relocate the relay for the injection harness, because the ignition harness, because the ignition harness has a short connection right up here, so that'll be nice and tucked away there. And I'm starting to pull the harness up and away because we're going to want it to be as far away from the downpipe as possible when we're done with this. We still have to figure out what we're going to do with this battery connection. So I think that's what we can go ahead and address next. Oh, also we do have the oil pressure sensor plugged in and the fuel pressure sensor plugged in. I'm looking at how we're going to tidily route those as well. These zip ties I got off Amazon, I'll leave a link in the description below, are great because in any of the little holes around the chassis that are left from stock equipment, they have little brackets that mount in there and zip up, and then they're actually really easy to remove because I can reach back here. So we can hold it up there for now, and multi-pack of those. Yeah, we're moving right along. So hopefully, it's getting late in the day today, but hopefully by the end of the week we should have this done and have this video out for you guys, and then we can start priming the engine and getting us ready to go. But right now let's see what we can do with this battery connection. Okay, so we just started measuring it out, and we think there's enough length to just double this back through the firewall with one of the open ports, and we actually have a grommet that'll fit in there too to protect everything. Just got that down there. Just going to try and pass it through. Where are you going there?
Just trying to get it around these. I mean, we can always unplug stuff, but I was trying just to get it right there.
Nice. Okay, so we're going to feed that through and see if it'll reach to the relocated battery. Alright, so so here she is coming through here.
Right there.
Okay, so we pulled it through. Oh, focus. Okay, pulled it through there. Did you get the grommet in place too?
Yep.
Nice. Okay, so obviously tuck it behind this dash console and under here, but it reaches. This is right where the battery sits.
Look at
That's
that.
awesome. Okay, cool.
How are we messing up now?
Well, since we discovered that the power for this whole unit reaches, we want to make the connections so that we can try and fire it up. And we can see if we can connect a computer into the Haltech, and maybe the Haltech can tell us what it likes about what we've set up and what it doesn't like. And then it'll give us a guide as to what we need to do next. So that's what I'm working on. I'm going to try and make some connections here on these battery posts to get power to the harness. Okay, here it is, the big enchilada. Now it's interesting because we have a map sensor, but it looks like it also needs vacuum input here.
Maybe that's just for boost pressure.
I don't know. There is a manual. Ooh, and a sticker.
Oh, you know where that's going?
No.
It's going on the Fiat.
Nice. Okay, so we're going to hook this up and we're going to look through the quick start guide, and we'll be back in a minute. But I am a bit concerned because we found that the key, if you'll see here, hand me that. As you'll see here, there is no key in the ignition, but let's watch what happens when we connect the battery. Well, it didn't happen this time, but the headlights just turned on, and you can hear that, and that shouldn't be able to happen without an accessory mode at least. So we're going to be very careful because we might just hook up the battery and this Haltech just powers on immediately. So we'll see. Okay, so we started to look through the startup manual and see if there's any warnings, make sure we weren't doing anything wrong before we fired it up. And all it said was plug this into your computer and get started. So let's fire it up. Alright guys, so it is the next evening. We ran out of daylight, so we had to stop last night. Just got home from work, and we did figure out how to power on the Haltech, and we did get it connected to the laptop. So let me show you what's up. Right here in the wiring harness for the interior of all the input-output connections that we have a pink wire. This is the switch input, 12 volts, that turns on all the main relays in the fuse box. So we hook this up on a switch, and when we connect it to power to switch it on, we get our nice power light. Here we have the Haltech software, and if we go here to connect, we'll see ECU connected, which is great. So now, while it does its connection bit, let's rig up a test to see if our sensors are actually working. Alright guys, so I hooked up that TPS sensor that we had pinned out, which I was a little bit worried about. And here it does show a value. It does show 100%, I guess that is. And I'm hoping because I don't have the base map loaded yet, that is why it's showing that. However, if I do touch the plunger, the values do bounce around a little bit, which at least means that it's sending signal through. It seems to be in reverse, so hopefully that's not from the pinout, but if it is, I can switch that around. And then I hooked up the coolant temperature sensor. It's just sitting out in the air because we still need to tap the inlet here. However, sitting out in the air, it's showing 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is accurate for the temperature right now. So that means that our sensors are reading, which is great, and our Haltech is powered on and connected to the computer. Now, I still need to get a base map for an S4. Hopefully I can find something online. The kit that it came with, even though it's for a pre-terminated S4 harness, only comes with FD maps. So we're going to look for that, download that, and then continue to connect and route the wiring harness to a nice, beautiful finish. And that'll be coming up in part 2 of our Haltech install video. Now, I want to say to you all, cheers, thank you for being subscribers, and it is September 30th. What is important about that is that tomorrow is October 1st, and I will be participating with some of my friends in Sober October. Something that's out there on the internet, real big on the Joe Rogan podcast, and me and my buddy Captions are going to be participating together following the same rules. Our rules are simple. No booze, no caffeine, no anything else you might be doing, being sober until the end of October. On top of that, we're going to add a physical challenge. We're going to be trying to run 50 miles throughout the month, or hike 50 miles throughout the month, so we can combine the totals. If you guys would like to participate, there's going to be a link in the description below for a sign up, and a hashtag you can use when posting. We'd love to get some of you guys to participate. We think it's more of a mental challenge and something to break you out of your comfort zone and remind us to relax appropriately, not always use substances, but sometimes just use exercise and good sleep to stay healthy. Now, we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. You know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.